This is an amazing experience for me to be here. I'm learning a lot, and I find it exciting just being in your company. And it's my hope that I will be able to give you something back and be able to contribute also to your experience here. Before the focus of what I'm going to talk about is trust, which is probably not what you expected. And it's going to be framed in the context of benefit of the doubt. Every breakthrough in our field and every turning point in my life began when someone took a chance on another human being, when someone gave the benefit of the doubt. This is the advancing, is that?
To the right, there you go.
Oh, okay. It's the middle one. Advances.
The right one.
The right one? Okay. Okay, so now I'm with it. That quiet act of faith. Well, let me back up here. Every breakthrough in our field and every turning point in my life began when someone took a chance on another human being. When someone gave the benefit of the doubt. That quiet act of faith is what this talk is about. How it shaped me and how widening it can shape the future of neurotechnology. It's an honor to join all of you, colleagues, innovators, investors, friends at the 25th Neurotech Leaders Forum. As we mark 50 years since the first commercial spinal cord stimulator for pain control became available. I want to thank Jim Cavuto for giving me this invitation. Jim, was, as he's mentioned, was once a undergraduate student in biomedical engineering at Case Western Reserve University. And it means a great deal to me to stand here decades later, sharing this space with you. This is just an incredible opportunity. Thanks, Jim. The invitation read, it would be particularly special for me if you could come. It would be appropriate to have you reflect back on those early days. I think he's talking 66, 67. But you could speak on any topic of your choice, which was the license I needed. That invitation, any topic of your choice, is itself an act of trust, really trust. A small but meaningful example of benefit of the doubt. And that I've come to see is how every new idea in our field begins. When someone, somewhere, giving another person the benefit of the doubt. For much of my life, I didn't realize how often I had been trusted, welcomed, and encouraged. Not because of what I had done, but because of who people assumed I was. That's the essence of benefit of the doubt. To be assumed competent before proving it, to be waved through the gates that others are stopped at, to be seen as safe, credible, and worthy. At the NANS meeting a few years ago, I spoke about opportunities I accessed because of white privilege. That unearned confidence society extended to me because I was white, male, straight, and educated in systems that had excluded others for many years. Today, I want to go deeper. Privilege gives you the wind at your back. The benefit of the doubt, wind at the back, and unearned confidence. Okay. Privilege gives you wind at the back, and the benefit of the doubt is how the wind feels every day. When it lifts us, we're not aware of it. When it fights us, pushes back on it, it's when it blows against us and tires us out. Those quiet, reoccurring acts of trust and welcome accumulate into opportunity. Throughout my life, they changed everything. A teacher who saw something in me when my grades said otherwise. A teacher who, people who opened the door before I'd earned the keys. Each of those moments redirected my path, and every one began with someone giving me the benefit of the doubt. Throughout our field, we see this quiet bias shapes who gets to invent, who gets funded, who's believed. It's every innovation begins when somebody says, I think that might work. Let's try it. I'm standing here because again and again, people said that about me. Serendipity is what I want to move to now. We like to call it luck or chance, or being at the right place at the right time. But serendipity rarely works alone. Viewed through my lenses, it's embedded in the ethers that we surround us, free, abundant, available to all. The real mystery isn't its presence. It's why so few of us see it. Horace Walpole coined the term in 1754 after the Persian tale, The Three Princes of Serendib, whose heroes made discoveries not by searching or seeing. They weren't looking for opportunity. They simply had the lenses to notice what others passed by, turning the ordinary into discovery. Looking back, I see my life not as a series of planned achievements, but as a string of moments when others saw something in me I didn't yet see and trusted me anyway. Many of you, I suspect, can trace your own path that same way, through the quiet faith of someone who once said, let's give it a try. That's the hidden engine of serendipity. It operates through benefit of the doubt. And of course, it still requires action. You have to get up in the morning, you have to saddle your horse, and you have to ride out into the world. But not everyone can. Some are held back by systems that rarely extend them the same trust, and others by burdens of the mind so heavy that getting out of bed is itself an act of courage. When that happens, humanity loses something. Discoveries never made, ideas never spoken, lives never fully lived. The tragedy isn't that serendipity is rare, but it's unevenly distributed. We all see the world through lenses, filters shaped by our upbringing, community, and experience. They define what we notice and what we dismiss. My lenses were shaped in the cultural osmosis of Amarillo, Texas, absorbing ideas through immersion rather than instruction, long before I was old enough to question them. Without a father to model after, I was trying on various versions of myself, testing who I might become. I borrowed pieces from the men around me. The cowboy who carried himself like a man should. The farmhand who could keep equipment running with baling wire and twine. The mechanic who understood the engine down to its heartbeat. The machinist who could make a tool for any impossible task. Looking back, I see how that I was absorbing not only their skills and their pride, but also their assumptions, ideas about worth, belonging, and who deserved the benefit of the doubt. Those men were capable, honorable, and proud, yet many harbored the quiet biases that would later surface in my life. That's the double edge of cultural osmosis. It can pass along both the best of culture, its craftsmanship, its humor, its code of work, and its blind spots. I carry both. still sorting through them at this late stage of life, trying to keep what is strong and let go what has narrowed my lenses. Over time, with the help of a good life coach, I came to see those early impressions weren't truths, but distortions baked into the culture around me. Those lenses weren't destiny. They were the neural circuits that could be rewired if I chose to work on it. And once I began to see differently, I recognized how powerfully our lenses determine who we give the benefit of the doubt to and who we don't. That awareness has become both a late life education and perhaps an act of repair. In neurotechnology, the lesson still holds. And if you live every day, every time an engineer listens to a neurosurgeon, a data scientist sees what a patient feels, an investor trusts a founder who doesn't look quite like him, our field grows stronger. Every time we widen our lenses, we widen the future. Faith shaped me too, for better or worse. My mother, a single parent, raised 3 kids on a nurse's wages, drew her strength from our Southern Baptist Church. It gave her community and courage, but it also taught me exclusion, superiority, all while preaching love. Years later, an Episcopal priest in my retirement community said something that reframed everything. God and religion are separable. In that conversation, I realized what she calls God's hand, I call serendipity. Both names point to the same mystery, that grace moves through trust, and trust begins with giving others the benefit of the doubt. Picture 4 people walking into the same room for an interview: a woman, a Black man, a gay man, and me. White, male, straight. Before the word is spoken, the room tilts. I expect belonging. She is braced for questions no man would ever face about her family, her tone, her toughness, even the right to be in the room. He wonders if his skin has already closed the door, if he'll have to prove twice as much for half the trust. The gay candidate debates whether to mention his husband. His being himself will cost him belonging. That invisible tilt is the benefit of the doubt. Invisible if you have it, impossible to ignore if you don't. I stand here because I got it. But imagine how much richer our field and our world would serve, the world we serve could be if women, Black Americans, LGBTQ people, our colleagues, receive that same trust and as benefit of the doubt. Bias doesn't harm individuals. It cheats humanity out of genius, art, and discovery and leadership. When I was 11, my friend Joe told me about a summer job he had gotten at Palladura Canyon. I told Joe, that's on the right, me on the left. I told Joe, you ain't going without me. He got me hired too. At the cusp of my most formative years, that summer job was one hell of a start. Because Joe did me a favor, and John McCarty, the concession manager, took a risk on 2 boys who had no business being hired. That single act of trust set the course of my life. 4 years later, Joe was in an automobile accident and suffered a spinal cord injury. My career and much of my purpose became about restoring function to people like him. From Amarillo's auto shops to Texas Tech, to Case Western Reserve, to a postdoc in Sweden, each step in my career was built on trust, extended by others. The same trust that your companies and labs keep moving forward. A service manager who hired me as a mechanic when I was still in high school. A professor at Texas Tech who saw something in me when my grades didn't say otherwise. Mentors like Jim Reswick and Norm Shealy, who welcomed me into their space and transitioned me to a new frontier, neurobiology, neuromodulation. Those acts of trust formed a lineage I've tried to pass on to every student, colleague, and collaborator who followed. In 2020, George Floyd's murder forced me to see that privilege isn't about guilt or wealth. It's about starting from trust instead of suspicion. That moment also stirred something in me. I saw a movement rising, not just for Black lives, but for women, for LGBTQ people, for everyone long denied the benefit of the doubt. In my retirement years, I wanted to be a part of that work, to lend whatever voice I had to the effort of righting a wrong that began 400 years ago and still shapes who gets the benefit of the doubt. These faces tell you more than I can. Shortly after I set out to contribute in my small way, I ran across Erica Merritt. Erica is an organizational development consultant and quickly became my go-to guide for understanding how power, opportunity, and trust are unevenly distributed in our society. She helped me see that benefit of the doubt, or its absence, shapes the lenses through which we see one another. This is Eric Hudak and his husband, Ryan Kofran. Eric deepened my grasp of electrochemistry and platinum, a foundation of safe neural interfaces and cornerstones of devices our field depends on. Today, he is at NINDS, where he leads transitional research, guiding late-stage neurotechnology development and early-stage clinical trials with medical devices. In Eric, I appreciate not only his scientific rigor, but the human courage it takes to live authentically. Building on Dr. Hudak's work, Dr. Doi Kumsa deepened my understanding of electrochemistry of platinum, how products of platinum corrosion are involved in tissue damage of neural tissues. Dr. Kumsa is a program director at NINDS. She is responsible for basic and early stage research on neurotechnology, and that forms the scientific foundation of tomorrow's clinical breakthroughs. In Doi, I appreciate not only scientific rigor, but how the steady courage it takes for a foreign-born woman of color to navigate today's America. And this is me at 11 with John McCarty, the man who first gave me the benefit of the doubt. And in the end, that's the through line of my life. Trust extended, serendipity encountered, lenses reshaped. And perhaps that's the next chapter of our field, that Jim, or whomever organizes this forum in the future, will have to choose among a remarkable range of leaders, women, men, people of color, LGBTQ colleagues, all ready to take this podium. And so, borrowing from journalist Jose Diaz-Balart, I close by saying, thank you for the privilege of your time.
Wow. Outstanding and very moving talk, Tom. Thank you much for sharing many of those details. Many of those details I never knew when I was a student in your class. We were different, both different people back then, but so many of those themes carry true. I'd like to open it up to questions. I think there may be some questions, about some of your experiences early on working with Dr. Shealy, with Earl Bakken. Don't feel like you have to go into a lot of detail, but I bet you there'd be some folks here who want to know what it was like, 50 years ago when you were working on the first spinal cord stimulation system. Did you think at the time that the field would grow to what it is now? Did you have any idea that we'd see the range of different applications, starting with that first implanted neurological device, see the range of new indications and applications that have emerged in the last 50 years?
I wish I could, Jim, I wish I could say I was that thoughtful and I was looking around and had that much insight into the future. At that point, I wasn't clear what in the world I was going to do and how I could earn a living in doing what I was doing, because I'd learned mostly how to do animal experiments, which I enjoyed. And coming out of electrical engineering, I didn't really know how to do what kind of a living I could make with those two things. But it was a postdoc experience I had as a postdoc in Sweden, when I was able to solve a problem that they'd been working on for about 6 or 7 years, because I could do an animal experiment and they couldn't. And I solved their problem and I saw, oh, there may be a future for a guy like me who could do animal experiments and was an electrical engineer. So that's my story there. I wish it was more dramatic, but it was, I was wandering through the woods most of the time.
Did you have an opportunity to meet Earl Bakken?
Yes.
I never did. So I was fortunate to have had an interview with Al Mann before he passed away. Also Wilson Greatbatch before he passed away. Never had the opportunity to interview Earl Bakken. What was he like?
I met Earl Bakken at the time I was working on, started working on the dorsal column stimulator. And I met a guy named Norm Hagfors, who turns out to be employee number 4. I thought it was 3, but he informed me he's employee 4. Bakken being employee number 1 of Medtronic. So I was visiting there, and Medtronic was very good to me. We talked about, I had no idea how to build an implantable device. And so I listened and saw what they were doing. What I ended up building was certainly nothing like anything they'd ever built. Instead of a metal housing, mine was made out of glass, because I needed a non-conducting outside part, because I was going to stick a needle through the skin into a port, into this device, to be able to measure, see how it was working. So I needed an antenna, and I couldn't make an antenna anywhere near as perfectly or look professionally. And it's the kind you want to have in the hospital. So Norm Hagfors got an antenna for me, and then we adapted the antenna to the device that we made at Case, external component. And I met Earl Bakken as I was walking into Medtronic, it was an unusual place because when I first walked in, there were no, and nothing to impede my motion. I could go anywhere just by walking in. And there were a lot of fish tanks around with devices in them with water bubbling in them. And Norm Hagfors escorted me across the building, and I passed an office. The man standing in the office was Earl Bakken.
Wow.
And it's a Formica-lined office, wasn't really fancy. And we talked and we chatted a little bit. I was introduced, and then I met him several other times after that. I never found him to be a very talkative man. I don't know. David may have seen more of him than I did, but
He's not very talkative.
I got two Davids who knew Bakken there.
Very interesting.
So, yeah.
So Tom, in addition to, you know, your distinguished career as a researcher and as an engineer, you were also an educator. And I'd be real interested to hear, for personal reasons, about your decision to go to Cleveland and Case Western Reserve University. What I can tell you as a 17-year-old high school senior, I looked around. There were not very many biomedical engineering undergraduate programs. I think maybe Duke had a program, maybe USC had a program. There were interdisciplinary programs that shared faculty with the EE department or shared faculty with other departments, but not very many undergraduate degrees in biomedical engineering. What drew you to Cleveland? What drew you to Case Western Reserve University?
Money. Reswick gave me a fellowship to attend Case. The award was $135 a month. I stayed in the thing called, it was a graduate house. It was the coolest place a graduate student could ever live, and it cost $125. So I had $10 to do all my dating and whatever all I wanted to do. So you had to be pretty creative to live on a salary like that. It didn't take long before I moved out, but I met some really interesting people. One of the people that was in the same building was David Satcher. Anybody know who David Satcher is? He was what's the physician, general physician for whoever was before Obama, I think.
Oh, okay.
A Surgeon General.
Surgeon General.
You're looking at an old man who can't come up with names and nouns, failing right now in front of your own eyes. It's really a struggle.
All right. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Hi, Dr. Mortimer. I'm John Sakai. My first job was with the Cleveland FES Center, so I'm grateful for the legacy you and others created. I'm curious, so much of our industry involves collaboration between industry, technology, and also patient advocacy. And I'm curious to the degree to which that existed in the spinal cord injury community, and if that was a challenge for getting funding and attention to your work.
Run that by one more time.
Patient advocacy organizations help shine a light on conditions and the need to develop technology to improve them. And I was wondering if there were those organizations when you were starting your early work that helped shine a light on the needs for spinal cord injury, or if you helped generate those. So that's what I'm interested in.
So funding for spinal cord injury, when I first started in there, Jim Reswick, who was my mentor, had already broken the ground through social rehabilitation services in the Department of Education. So that's where the funding came out of there. Jim Reswick, his idea of dealing with spinal cord injury was to build a pneumatically powered assist device, which he did, and he completed about the same time that I showed up in Cleveland. And this was a very heavy thing powered by compressed gas. And it proved the idea that you could restore some function to spinal cord injured patients. And about that same time at NIH, they started a program called the neuroprosthesis program. What I think that started that program was Giles Brindley's report on putting electrodes on the occipital cortex of his patient, of his nurse. So who could, and they saw the phosphenes. So that was the first record of a visual prosthesis that I think started. Did he? Did he? But that was, I think, what started the whole program in there at NIH. And that's where I grew up. It was a program that enabled a lot of really solid people to come together. And I was probably one of the more naive ones that benefited immensely from being in that company. So the neuroprosthesis program at NIH, which is actually the preceded what the NINDS, which Doi Kumsa and Eric Hudak are both now in. So it's matured there. PVA, the Paralyzed Veterans of America, was a big factor, I think, in funding. They helped us, but we needed large sums of money, and $10,000, $20,000 were the kinds of money that they did, but they advocated for the work. They were supporting of us. But
yeah. By the way, Tom, the NPP, the neuroprosthesis program, as you know, got converted into the neural interfaces workshop and is now called the Neural Interfaces Conference. So there was just recently a meeting in Washington, D.C., and they asked Neurotech Reports to put together a compendium of our coverage. Now, we started in 2001, but we were at pretty much every single meeting between 2001 and this year. And so we actually published that compendium. Many of our subscribers have already received it. If there's anyone here in the room that would like our compendium of coverage of the neural prosthesis workshop / neural interfaces conference, we'd be happy to send that to you. Please just shoot us a message in the app or shoot me an email. I'll be happy to send you that coverage. At any rate, Tom, your talk was excellent, although I have to say we did just receive a message from the Trump administration, and they've asked us to delete all your comments about DEI. So I'm sorry.
I was afraid that would be coming. And I may not be able to get out of here Sunday.
You may not get your flight might be canceled, Tom. But Jojo and Jeremy and I wanted to leave you a little token of San Francisco while you're here. I hope that you'll be able to enjoy it. And we'd also like to invite Dave from Medtronic to come up because I think he has something he wants to present as well.
Thank you. So I'm Dave Dinsmore. I'm a biomedical engineer from Medtronic, and I, like Jim and so many others here, Jordy, Dave Peterson, Manny, Pung, I'm Jimmy. I'm sure there's many of you guys that I haven't met. We're all fortunate to have Professor Mortimer as an instructor as well. Got us excited about neurotechnology. And this was also the 50th anniversary of the neuromodulation division at Medtronic. And we're just so appreciative of everything you've done, both for us as a company, but for us as people too. So I have this plaque for you. About 50 years ago, Earl Bakken commissioned this picture. It's called The Rising Man. It's kind of the story of man's journey for full life, going from an incapacitated state to a full state. Again, thank you so much for what you've accomplished.
Thank you very much, David.
I really appreciate it.